Good morning. Whether you are here in person or you're watching from at home, it's good to be with you this morning. It's good for all of us to be together. As we gather together this morning, let me share words with you from Maya Angelou's poem, Late October. Carefully, the leaves of autumn sprinkled down the tinny sound of little dyings, and skies sated of ruddy sunsets, of roseate dawns roil ceaselessly in cobweb grays and turn to black for comfort. Only lovers see the fall a signal to endings, a gruffish gesture alerting those who will not be alarmed that we begin to stop in order to begin again. Come, my friends, with our hearts open to both the challenges and the possibilities that this new day and this new week bring, with our hearts open to all that inspires, sustains, redeems, and transforms us. Come and let us worship together. The flaming chalice is the symbol of the Unitarian Universalist tradition, the liberal religious tradition to which this congregation belongs. Will those of you who are here in person please stand as you are able for the lighting of our chalice? And if you have a chalice at home, I invite you to light it with us at this time. Will you please join me in reciting the words on the screen? As we kindle this flame, we recommit ourselves to nurturing the spirits of one another and the common good of the world we share. May the light of this flame be welcoming to all who seek a liberal religious home. For those of you standing, please remain standing for our opening hymn. Our opening hymn this morning is number 21, For the Beauty of the Earth.
For the love which from
Please be seated. If you are visiting with us for the first time this morning, I'd like to offer you a special welcome. Here at the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Raleigh, we are intentionally inclusive, liberally religious, and actively serving the common good of our shared world. Whoever you are and wherever you are on your own religious journey, we welcome you here. If you are visiting with us for the first time in person, I invite you to stop by our welcome stand in the foyer if you haven't already done so. And if you're a return visitor, you can pick up a more permanent name tag at our welcome stand, or if you have lost your name tag, you can request a new one. But I encourage everyone to wear one to help everybody remember each other's names. If you're visiting with us online, I invite you to fill out our visitor form at UUFR/visitor form. If you do this, you'll start receiving our weekly e-newsletter. And I hope all of you will read through the chalice you received by email on Thursday about everything happening around here at UUFR. And I would like to highlight just a couple things. Our social hour this morning will again be in room 201 of Peace Hall, the building next door. And I now have a special announcement from David Portorti about our auction next Sunday.
As a member of the UUFR Auction Committee, I'd like to take a moment to remind you that the online portion of our auction is going on right now, and the exciting in-person portion of our auction will take place 1 week from today, right here on Sunday, November 6th, following the service that day. We're doing it earlier this year. You can look at, bid on, or instantly buy a whole selection of items that we have online right now. And after only a couple of days, we open it up on Wednesday, we have already sold items or received bids totaling more than $3,000. So that's a really good start. Thank you for that. And some of the items you can still pursue include an ice cream party for as little as $10 per family, a whole bunch of different theater tickets, a picnic basket with wine, a Kentucky Derby party, a brews and tunes gathering, lots of unique and beautiful paintings and artwork, games for kids, and much more. So the online auction, that's going to continue through this Saturday, November 5th at noon. When it is over, all those items will be done. You'll not be seeing them again, and we will move on to our live in-person auction, November 6th, a week from today. During the live auction, you can bid silently on some items which will be placed around the room on bid sheets. You can bid on items that will be auctioned off live by our professional auctioneer who has generously volunteered his time and will get us through it efficiently and with a lot of fun. And you can buy raffle tickets that day, only $2.50, a maximum of 10 tickets per family, and we will draw those as part of our auction of delightful meal items, so you can choose which meal you would like to pursue and put your ticket in a jar for that specific meal if you'd like. There will be door prizes available to people attending the event, and those will be drawn at random, and every family is guaranteed to leave with something. Remember, you can only participate during the live event in person. We will provide childcare for you during the auction. We will serve lunch at no charge. Some important points: you have to register online in advance in order to bid during the online or in-person auction. Please don't wait until the last minute. There's no charge to register, but you do have to register. You must let us know what food you'd like to eat in advance and how many people will be eating so we can be ready for you. You can also do that online, but the deadline for letting us know about your food preferences is this Wednesday, November 2nd at 8 p.m. There's no charge for food. So you can do all this on our website, uufr.org, and follow the link to the auction. If you have any questions, please contact members of the auction committee at the table out in our foyer or send a note to auction@uufr.org. We look forward to seeing you all. This is our biggest fundraiser of the year. It's next Sunday, November 6th, right after the service, or you can get on board right now by visiting the online auction. Our goal is to be inclusive of all of our members, so we are saying, y'all come. Thank you.
Thank you, David. And I would like to now invite you to meet and greet the people around you. social hour. Hey, Sage. There will be plenty of time to continue those conversations during social hour. Thank you. This is the time in our service when we acknowledge some of the joys and the sorrows of our community. We do this because we believe that a joy shared is a joy made greater, and a sorrow that is shared is made easier to bear. Connie Baker again asks for our prayers as her dear friend in Maryland, Donna Brinster. For her dear friend in Maryland, Donna Brinster. Donna was diagnosed with cancer of the vocal cords last spring and is finishing her second round of chemo, along with irradiation. We send Donna our prayers, healing thoughts, and our energy. And someone anonymous shares today a request to please give us strength as we learn of allegations of the owner arrested at our kids' preschool. We are devastated and the community is fractured. We are sending prayers and good thoughts of strength to you. And as we hold these shared sorrows in our hearts and we reflect on the joys and sorrows and fears and hopes of our own lives, let's be together now for a time of stillness and silence. I invite you to go ahead and close your eyes if you wish. I invite you to take a few moments to breathe deeply and slowly down into your belly. I invite you to open yourself to that spirit within us and amidst us, called by many names, but known to every human heart, that leads us to a fuller, deeper, richer experience of life. And after the silence, we will sing hymn number 123, Spirit of Life. But now let's be together in stillness and in silence. Since this country's early days, Unitarian Universalists and Unitarians and Universalists have been strong proponents and defenders of democracy. Several of the founding fathers who signed the Declaration of Independence identified as Unitarian or Universalist, including Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, and Benjamin Rush. The great Unitarian minister Theodore Parker was the person who coined the phrase, later borrowed by President Lincoln, of the people, by the people, and for the people. Unitarian laywoman Susan B. Anthony played a leading role in the movement to give women the right to vote. During the civil rights movements, Unitarian Universalists marched by the thousands, some sacrificing their lives, to widen access to the ballot box. It is our belief in the worth, dignity, and potential of every person, as well as our belief in that the more democratic a nation is, the more likely it will be a nation that embraces compassion, freedom, equality, sustainability, and peace, that grounds our commitment to promoting and defending democracy today. It could be said that democracy is the highest social expression of our deepest religious values. Today, democracy is under attack from many corners. Two of the greatest dangers to democracy are the extreme gerrymandering that exists in far too many states, as well as the dark money that pollutes our politics. For several years, Becky Harper, a longtime UUFR member, has been involved with Common Cause and its efforts to create fair redistricting, and support campaign finance reform. That involvement has led her to become the named respondent in a case that will appear before the U.S. Supreme Court in December. Becky is here this morning to tell us about how her many years of involvement with defending democracy have led her to the U.S. Supreme Court. Please welcome her to the pulpit this morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Reverend James and Reverend Sasha. It's an honor to speak to all of you from the pulpit this morning. I'm wearing my Common Cause North Carolina hat this morning. I've been a member of the board of directors there for about 4 years. So, sorry, I have to remember to point to the many people ask how it is that I got my name on a Supreme Court case. Most of my friends have never known anybody that had their name on a Supreme Court case. So in 2000, it is kind of a long and winding road with some serendipity involved. In 2009, as a private citizen, not related to any organization, I wrote a letter of complaint to the State Board of Elections. Many of you know that I'm a real estate agent, and as a real estate agent, I am required to join the Realtor Association and pay dues. And the Realtor Association was using our mandatory dues money for a lot of political action that I was very much opposed to, and I thought that was wrong. So I wrote a letter to the State Board of Elections. And that ended up becoming kind of a test case. The Board of Elections scheduled a hearing. Lots of heavy hitters came out of the woodwork. All of a sudden, there was a lot of press coverage and people involved. And at that time, Common Cause North Carolina and Democracy NC and some of the other good government groups came to my defense, filed amicus briefs, and helped me with that effort. That's how I became involved with Common Cause, and I became a volunteer and a donor. And frankly, that letter led to my name on this case. So Common Cause North Carolina has been the leading nonpartisan, nonprofit organization advocating for campaign finance reform and fair and impartial redistricting for many years. There have been a whole series of court cases out of North Carolina because North Carolina is a purple state, very evenly divided, lots of contentious issues come out of North Carolina. 2019 was a very big year. A lawsuit called Common Cause v. Rucho went to the U.S. Supreme Court in that year. It was watched around the country for the results of that case. It was about gerrymandered districts in North Carolina. In 2019, the Supreme Court of the United States ruled that there was no guidance in the federal Constitution regarding the issue of gerrymandering, and that there was not a standard that they could apply. They kicked it back to the states and said this is a state issue for state courts to resolve. So in that same year, 2019, the General Assembly adopted new legislative and districts for North Carolina, which were heavily gerrymandered to favor the dominant party. And in 2019, Common Cause elected to sue again and recruited plaintiffs from around the state. So there are actually about a dozen plaintiffs on the case, and by happenstance, my name was listed first, and so there you have it. So that case became Harper v. Lewis, and then in 2020, there was another redraw because census data came out, and North Carolina, because of our growth, was awarded a 14th congressional district or seat, and so we had to go from 13 congressional seats to 14 congressional seats. That required a redraw. The General Assembly adopted new maps, and Common Cause sued again, and that case became known as Harper v. Hall. That case went to the Supreme Court of North Carolina, because remember, the U.S. Supreme Court had said it's a state issue and state courts should resolve it. So for Harper v. Hall, the General Assembly had adopted, can you go back to the map? Yes, thank you. So this was the map that the General Assembly adopted for the 14 congressional districts in 2019. In 2020, after the census data came out. This map would have, in all likelihood, produced 14, if the 14 seats would have been divided with 10 Republican winners and 4 Democratic winners. Now, how is that done in a purple state where the vote tends to split pretty close to 50-50? The way it is done is by packing and cracking, in most cases cracking. So this particular map cracked Wake County, where we live. Wake County, Mecklenburg County, and Guilford County, our large urban areas, have trended increasingly Democratic over the years. And so the way that the power of those Democratic voters was reduced was by slicing and dicing the urban counties and attaching portions of them to larger rural areas adjacent, which tend to have more Republican voters. So again, Harper v. Hall went to the North Carolina Supreme Court, and in February 2022, this year, the state court forced the General Assembly to modify the legislative districts, but more importantly, they hired special masters to redraw the 14 congressional seats, redraw the district. The Supreme Court found that the legislature had discriminated against blocks of voters based on their political preferences, based on the way they vote, not based on race. As you know, there's a long history of gerrymandering around racial issues in our country, but in this case, our Supreme Court found that the discrimination was against people based on their beliefs, based on their preferred voting political parties. So the problem with gerrymandering, and I'm sure many of you already know this, but gerrymandering allows politicians to choose their voters. The fundamental concept of by the people and for the people is that the people choose their representatives. They are unable to do that when the lines are drawn to skew the results before anyone actually even casts a ballot. So the court imposed this map, gave us this map, and as you can see, this map is likely to result in a 7-7 split. 7 Democrats and 7 Republicans are going to be the likely winners of the election, which is now just a few days away. This is the best, the most fair congressional map that North Carolina has had in decades. The voters will actually get to pick representatives that more accurately reflect the public opinions of the voters of North Carolina. I live in the 13th Congressional District, and so the 13th Congressional District is one of the swing districts in this map. It includes southern Wake County and parts of Harnett and Johnston County. It is an open seat. There is no incumbent. It is one of the districts that the pundits on TV are talking about, the North Carolina 13th. Everybody's watching the 13th because it is a genuinely swing district that has been created under this map. There is a vibrant, I would say ugly campaign going on between 2 strong candidates in that district. So the legislature was very unhappy with this result. And surprise, they tried to undo what the North Carolina Supreme Court had done. So they went back with an appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court, and that case became Moore versus Harper. In June of this year, the U.S. Supreme Court announced that they would hear this case without any preliminary lower court arguments. It's going directly to the U.S. Supreme Court. It will be argued on December 7th. The crux of Moore v. Harper is an issue of checks and balances. Checks and balances is a concept that we all learned back in civics class, that there are lots of players who have responsibilities in our state governments. There are many different branches of government. They all have a role to play. They check each other by not allowing one branch to become too powerful. We have a federal system in this country, and states organize their elections in different ways. There are lots of different players in different states. However, all of the states have courts, state Supreme Courts, that are charged with interpreting state constitutions. And in North Carolina, our state constitution actually provides more protection for voters, for free speech and free assembly, than the federal constitution does. This is why our state court delivered the ruling that it did in Harper v. Hall. In other states, in addition to state courts, there are other constitutional officers. Some states have governors that have veto authority over maps drawn by the legislature for redistricting. Our governor does not have that authority. It was taken away from him some years ago, but in other states that is a factor. Many states have secretaries of state, and I'm sure you've been watching some of the secretaries of state that have been in controversial positions, lots of coverage on the news. We have a Secretary of State in North Carolina, but she actually has nothing to do really with elections. Our Secretary of State, that function in North Carolina is handled by the Board of Elections. And in North Carolina, it's the Board of Elections, which is an appointed authority. There are members of both political parties that serve on the Board of Elections, but they are the ones that monitor, set up the rules for early voting, enforce voter ID if there are rules around that, polling places, early voting, absentee voting, poll workers, poll watchers. Secretaries of State or boards of elections are the entities that are charged with adopting and enforcing those rules. Some states have adopted independent redistricting commissions, something we all might like to see here in North Carolina. In most states that have independent redistricting, that has been accomplished through citizen initiative, the ability of citizens to propose a law, collect signatures, put a proposal on the ballot, and have the whole voting public decide whether to add that to the Constitution or not. Again, here in North Carolina, we do not have citizen initiative. That is not an option for us. But it's been an important mechanism of reform in other states. So all of these different entities check and balance each other. And our legislature is arguing in Moore v. Harper that state legislatures should have largely unrestrained or unrestricted authority to adopt rules for elections. This theory is called the independent state legislature theory, and it is based on an interpretation of language in the U.S. Constitution, Article 1. There is an elections clause that has language about the legislature adopting rules for federal elections. This theory has been percolating through legal think tanks for a number of years, but this case will be the test of that theory. I am not a lawyer. I'm not responsible for making legal decisions in this case, so I need to add that disclaimer. However, there is lots of material. If you Google Moore versus Harper, you'll find more than you probably ever want to hear about the impacts of this case. Moore v. Harper could undo the Rucho decision from just 3 years ago, where the U.S. Supreme Court said that state Supreme Courts are responsible or have the authority to monitor gerrymandering in their states. Moore v. Harper could also undo many of the reforms that have been adopted in other states by citizen initiative. Some of you know I grew up in Alaska, and Alaska's been an interesting case recently with their ranked choice voting. Well, ranked choice voting was adopted by citizen initiative in Alaska. The Alaska state legislature is really upset about it, and they would like, and have already said, that they would love to get rid of that because they don't like the results that it produced in the Alaska general election. This is where gerrymandered districts are where elections are rigged. Long before votes are cast, unfortunately, because so much of the electorate is indeed very predictable with big data and all the rest of it, Elections can be predicted relatively accurately at a macro level. Gerrymandering is a bipartisan sin. Parties in power and incumbent elected officials like to fix things to benefit themselves. Here in North Carolina, Republicans are currently in control, but the Republicans used to be the allies of common cause. It was just a few decades ago that Phil Berger and Paul Stam and other leading lights in the Republican Party were the big advocates for nonpartisan redistricting. Points of view tend to change when you're in the minority versus the majority. New York and Maryland are examples of states that are gerrymandered in favor of the Democrats. So Moore v. Harper, the results in Moore v. Harper would not necessarily be a win for just one political party. Moore v. Harper will have unknown and somewhat unpredictable results in every state in the country. It will probably lead to lots more litigation. Unitarian Universalists have a long and proud history as advocates for social justice and democracy. We are passionate about a range of issues. Sasha's introduction was very on point about that. Our efforts to organize in partnership with One Wake over the last few years have been really exciting. But gerrymandering thwarts those efforts. North Carolina already has a structurally weak governor and a very powerful legislature. That is the way our Constitution is set up, for better or worse. As City of Raleigh voters have discovered, the General Assembly can change the date for city elections. They can impose new districts on cities and counties. They have immense power over school districts and other local officials. The composition of the legislature is absolutely essential for progress on all of the issues that we care about. Progress on any of our priorities: housing, climate, reproductive rights, equity issues, education. All of these require legislative solutions, and our legislature needs to reflect the points of view of the voters at large. It does not do that when the districts are gerrymandered. Moore v. Harper has become a huge national issue. There's lots of press. I encourage you to go home and Google it. There's some great articles in The Atlantic and The New Yorker. It is attracting a lot of attention, and I believe there's going to be a lot more between now and December 7th. There are dozens of amicus briefs that have been filed, and they're all on the Common Cause website if you want some exciting bedtime reading. But we have some surprising allies: Arnold Schwarzenegger and Michael J. Ludig, a leading light in conservative circles, who you may remember from the January 6th hearings, have actually filed briefs in favor of the Harper position. There are many others who are chiming in on the other side, of course. Common Cause North Carolina works in partnership with a lot of other important organizations. This litigation is a joint effort with the Southern Coalition for Social Justice, the National Redistricting Federation, and others. All of these organizations, including the UU Social Justice Network, are working together to educate the public about the stakes in this case and the threats to democracy. We are speaking to groups statewide. We are organizing meetings. We are working with newspapers and other media to get the message out. We want all of you to be talking about this case. We want all of you to engage with your friends about the importance of this case and the threats to democracy. One of the things that I'm most proud of about Common Cause North Carolina is our Democracy Fellows program. And because of your support last year, we were able to expand this program. We now have Democracy Fellows on all 10 historically black colleges and universities here in the state of North Carolina. These students are working to engage students, rally voter efforts, register voters, hold forums, etc., to motivate and get this group involved and engaged in our democracy. Your support funds all of our efforts to engage citizens and to protect democracy. The work is never done. This will not, Moore v. Harper will not be the end. There will be new fights over district lines and probably new court cases. But this case is very, very important to democracy as we know it in the United States today. Fighting for democracy has to be our mission. It has to be our first and foremost effort, our commitment, our passion. There are lots of volunteer opportunities. Even if you have never done election work before, there is a place for you between now and the election, which is November 7th, in case you're not aware. 8? Even if you have never done work before, there are so many opportunities to work from home, to phone bank, to work in voter engagement opportunities. Common Cause has opportunities, various campaigns have opportunities, UU Social Justice Network, you can volunteer with any of these groups. Democracy is under threat as never before. We need everyone to engage like you have never engaged before. Now is the time to live up to your UU values, to continue the struggle for a more perfect union. April Harris is here with Common Cause. She and I will be in the lobby after the service. We'd love to talk to you further about ways that you can get involved. Thank you very much for your support and for letting me speak to you this morning.
Thank you so much, Becky. Everything that we do here at UUFR is only possible because of the generosity that so many of you show this congregation. But once a month, we choose an organization from the larger community to be the recipient of our offering. This month, our recipient will be Common Cause, and your generosity this morning will support Common Cause's ongoing efforts to support fair redistricting and promote campaign finance reform. Very importantly, because of a matching grant from the Stifel Free Thought Foundation, every dollar you contribute today will be doubled. If you would like to make a contribution this morning, we invite you to bring it forward and put it in one of our offering plates. And you may also give using one of the methods on our screen. It's now time for our offering. Please be generous. Our closing hymn this morning is number 131, Love Will Guide Us. Will you please stand as you are able? As we end this time of worship together, may we do so with ever more love for one another, with ever more gratitude for the precious gift of life we share this day, with ever more peace in our hearts, and with ever more hope for our own lives and this world we share. Amen.